World's Strongest Stucker. Written by Kagaman and told by Ryan the Rudge. Sodor had long thrived with steam traction on its railways, though Sir Topham Hatt found diesels useful too. He recognised the value in being able to haul either coaches or trucks, and to be multi-directional with no need for a turntable. "You're highly versatile," he would say to them. "Real mixed traffic engines." Boko, Bear and Derek took great pride in this, though even versatile engines like them were still cautious with the trucks. Troublesome trucks delight in mischief, and their most recent scheme on Gordon's Hill had landed poor Henry laid up at the works with damaged tyres. Thankfully, this would be an easy fix for the staff at Croven's Gate. Nevertheless, the fat controller couldn't afford to spare even one engine during the busy season they were in. "As you all may have heard, our Henry has had an accident," he said to the engines at Titmouth. "I have arranged for a diesel to cover for Henry while he is away. If he leaves a good impression, I may consider keeping him on. His name is Andy, and he will arrive tomorrow. Boko will show him around." No sooner was the fat control out of earshot, James hissed. "Poor Henry," he began dramatically. "Trucks are no one's friends, you know, and neither are diesels." "Am I not your friend, James?" responded Boko, playfully. "Of course you are. You and Bear are some of the good ones." James said this sincerely, but Boko sighed at his word choice. "You can't blame me for being suspicious. Visiting diesels are always scheming." "Bear wasn't," said Duck defensively. "It's true that our first experience with a diesel made us hostile towards him, and Boko first, but we should know better by now that vulgarity can come from any engine." James was unmoved by Duck's remark, which resulted in a back and forth forming, something not uncommon for the two. Bear whispered to Derek amidst the commotion. "I wish the diesels on the mainland would treat our friends with more respect," he growled. It gets tiring playing therapist with James and the others." "Don't get your exhaust in a twist," lisped Derek reassuringly. "Perhaps this Andy will be respectful like us." The other engines weren't so sure. The next morning, the engines were getting prepped for another long day. A blue diesel crept through the station, crawled across the points and swayed into the yard. He stopped outside of the shed and went no further. "Oh, it's you all again," said the diesel. "I'm not surprised. I'd say every clock on this wrecked railway is broken with how many of your kettles are still in steam." The engines all hissed. The new livery didn't distract from the fact that they had seen this diesel before. "Yo!" whistled Duck with conviction. "Why are you back? Your name is Andy?" Andy's engine spluttered as he took a demeaning tone. "Yes, I am and always have been Andy. Not that you would know," the diesel went on. "You sudgered engines ruined me. Everywhere I go, people and engines call me Bowler." "Pah, as they should," protested Gordon. "Never mind about your name. You never introduced yourself. The second you entered our yard, you began boasting. Not even so much as a hello." The diesel, ignoring the big blue engine, continued his monologue. "Why does your controller insist on keeping you crockpots in service? This island is just an overgrown heritage railway." Andy shuddered delicately. "Back home, steam engines are stuck up in their place, not allowed to run along the main line without special permission. And another thing," but Andy never did finish his tirade, as it was cut off by the whistles and wheeshing from a shed of angry steam engines over top the growling and honking from the shuddering diesels in an attempt to calm the storm. Boko worked closely with Andy along the main line. Performance-wise, Andy did better than when he last visited. He glided down the rails of Henry's local goods and stopping passenger trains. He even had a go with the flying kipper. However, his ruthless and dismissive nature was only accentuated as the days went on. "Blemishes on the fruit, that is modernisation," he would often say when describing the Sudrian diesels. "Though I suppose faulty diesels are still leagues above any steam engine." After 5 days of tolerance, ignoring and eye-rolling, the gentle giant Boko finally snapped. "Stay outside if you think you're so special," Boko roared crossly as he backed out of the shed. "I'm going to join my friends." James watched Boko slide in between him and Bear. "I hope it's cold tomorrow so he has trouble starting up," mumbled James to Boko. "If not, then I hope he sucks up another hat for breakfast." The other engines laughed amongst themselves. "At least people might want to preserve ours," added Duck. "Who'd want Bowler? He's just an old stuck-up." The Sodor Ironworks had secured many steel contracts across the mainland. Normally, Harry and Bert would double-head the train to Kildane. From there, it would be attached to Henry's goods and taken on to either Vickerstown or Barrow, where it would be taken on even further by a mainland diesel. Sometimes Boko or Bear would take the train instead of Henry so that they could run it beyond Barrow without having to wait for another engine. Today, however, the train had been hauled all the way to Tidmouth the night before. The Ironworks manager arranged this due to the delivery being behind schedule. Having the train be fully assembled at Tidmouth meant Henry could make up for lost time and not have to stop at Kildane. Though as we know, Henry is away, meaning this duty would be Andy's to undertake. Duck had got an early start as usual and had already arranged the steel train. Andy, meanwhile, was still dozing off in his siding. "That's better," he purred to himself as he gazed at the empty sheds. "How could an engine rest in all that hissing and clanking?" Duck paid no notice, as he was waiting for Jasmine to come back from Augsburg with the ballast shipment. Bear was meant to return and depart with the train after Andy left. Unfortunately, Duck could bite his tongue no longer. "Will you please get moving already?" Duck whistled as he rolled up angrily beside Andy. "For an engine who boasts about how they could start up so quickly, you never seem to be in a rush." Andy jumped, but quickly composed himself. "Ahem, there's your answer," Andy said snobbishly. "We diesels can afford the extra rest. You, on the other hand..." But once again Andy found himself being cut off by a steam engine's whistle. It was Jasmine, who had arrived on time and who was whistling for Duck. "Coming!" Duck whistled back as he reversed, still looking at Andy. "Just take your train and be quick about it. We Sudrians can't afford to argue with you." Andy groaned. His operator arrived on cue and he soon set off. As he reversed onto the train, he began to monologue to the ballast trucks. It seems the diesel would chatter to anyone regardless if they'd listen. "Once the Fat Controller sees my full potential," he said smugly, "he'll finally see to it that his railway is modernised." Little did Andy know, ballast trucks were the most naughty of all. Give them an inch of track and they'll take the whole railway. As Andy pulled away with the steel, the trucks began to sing. "Is that all you can haul? Henry's loads are longer. Is that all you can haul? Henry must be stronger." Andy grinded to a halt and gagged. He was sure he was stronger than Henry. Then, a sinister scheme flew into the air intake that once was home to a bowler hat. "You are mistaken," he said grandly. "I will not only pull the kettle steel train, but I will also help you ballast trucks from that growling Hymek. That will show the Fat Controller how useful I am." The ballast trucks were delighted. Their plan was working. "Push us all, that's the longest. Push us all, you'll be the strongest. Yes, that's me." And he laughed to himself. "The world's strongest engine." Duck, while not fond of Andy, would have definitely warned about not taking the bait from the trucks had he fully grasped how much the diesel loved the sound of his own engine. The pannier was sitting at the water tower near the station. His crew had left for refreshments, and he had a perfect view of the yard and the shed. Duck watched with suspicion as Andy marshalled 5 ballast trucks in front of the steel train, then 10 trucks, then 15 trucks. Soon Andy had an enormous mega train of 20 ballast trucks and 20 steel trucks. James pulled into the platform, all steamed up for his next passenger train. "What on earth is stuck-up bowler doing?" James said with more confusion than conviction. "It appears," Duck said monotonely, "that he believes himself to be the world's strongest engine." Andy did not account for the fact that by not leaving when he was supposed to, the points were not set for the main line. The ballast trucks knew this, but encouraged Andy to pull anyway. "Pull! Pull! Pull!" chanted the trucks. Andy struggled to grip the rails. The train was too heavy for him, but he had too much pride to back down now. The trucks began to sing, "Heave-ho! Heave-ho! You got all, but we won't go!" This made Andy very cross. He growled and he pulled, and he growled and he pulled. All the while, James and Duck watched intensely. Then there was trouble. The coupling between Andy and the first ballast truck snapped. Andy went flying off like a rocket. He scuttled forward too quickly, far too quickly. The rails where Derek and Bear had stood that morning were still oily, and when Andy tried to stop, he couldn't. "Brake blocks and buffers, I'm slipping!" he wailed as his engines locked up and he let out a final "Help!" In distress, he shut his eyes and skidded across the turntable and crashed to the wall at the end of the shed with a loud thunk. The ballast trucks were delighted. They laughed so hard that their load shook around inside of them. Duck laughed so hard with James that they swore they'd become twins, and with how red they'd both become. Boko and Bear arrived on the scene quickly, but not for Andy. They had come to deliver the ballast and steel. And after splitting the train down the middle, they did just that. Andy was not badly damaged, but a dreadful draft came in through the hole in the wall. Henry was fixed and returned just in time to pull Andy out of the shed, but not before the Fat Controller arrived on Winston to give the diesel a much-needed tongue lashing. "Well, Andy, I'm not sure if my engines told you about my comment on you leaving a good impression," boomed the Fat Controller as he stood up in Winston. "Though I'm inclined to think so, as you've gone and left a decent one in our shed. My father warned me about you, and even I tried to give you a fresh start by not mentioning to my engines that you were the same diesel from years ago." He then proceeded to step out of Winston and stand on some of the shed rubble. "Your controller is waiting for you at Vickerstown. We shall both speak to you in depth when we get there. Can you make up for lost time, Henry?" "Oh, why yes, sir." Henry peeped innocently. There was some hissing and clanking. Henry pulled the disgraced bowler out of the shed and onward to Vickerstown. That night at the sheds, Henry was filled in by the other engines on the details they'd missed. "Ho, ho, ho," chortled Henry. "Old Stuck-Up came unstuck now, didn't he?" "Indeed he was," laughed Gordon. "Another one in the headlamp for old Stuck-Up." The engines laughed like schoolgirls. Henry cleared his throat. "I say, Boko," he asked while catching his breath, "what is it that the Fat Controller calls you?" "Versatile," chuckled Boko. "Though after you dropped off Bowler, that's not what I heard him and the other controllers say. I didn't quite catch every word of it, or it didn't sound very polite." Once again the sheds were overcome with laughter. Laughter so loud that it erupted out of the hole in the wall like a megaphone. It was a surprise no noise complaints were filed. Duck and James turned to each other amidst it all. "I suppose we can agree on something," Duck began cheerily. "Even troublesome trucks can do you a favour sometimes." "Like getting rid of old Stuck-Up diesel," finished James. That indeed was something the two agreed on.
root beer! Yeah, go, root beer, go!
Hey, what's that sign say?
Don't stop with me, man!